That's outside of my window right at the moment, so it's the 9th of March, and we're supposed to be racing on the 26th. So we need some better weather. What is this? It's supposed to be March. Anyway, so this year there is no longer the F100 Aqua class. It's gone for good. It was really good, but I guess it was time to move on and actually do something different. So the F100LC has been formed, which is essentially Formula A and ICE engines from 2000 to 2011. But the majority of us are going to be using the early cars, the early bodywork, like the proper ones, the good, best-looking ones. So I'm going to be using my existing Mitox, so that's why I've kind of put the Extreme to the side a little bit and focused on the Mitox mostly and the engines. So I'm going to show you some short videos which is going to explain what I've done in terms of the engine prep, and there's going to be some more videos in the future explaining about the kart prep, which in honesty there's not going to be much because the kart is already there, so the majority is as it is. There's no need to do anything on it, just maybe a bit of a tidy up, and then I'll also want to do like a summary video on the first race, because I really want to make sure that this class is going to get off the ground, because I think it's going to be absolutely epic. We now have nearly 10 drivers for the first ever race, which is really good, and there's loads of others lined up. So let's get into it. I'm Tibor, nice to have you on the video, and let me show you the engine prep side. On the Vortex engine, I didn't actually want to rebuild it, but I've spoken to people who have actually raised these type of engines before, or Formula A with the air-cooled engines, and what they said was that it might look actually okay from the outside without actually doing any measurements, but it might be very risky to just go for it and hoon it on a track. So they said, well, you'd better off to send it off for rebuild, so at least then you know you've got a good baseline and you can just start from there. So I've decided actually I don't want to destroy the engine, so I've actually sent it out. I'm going sent it out to somebody who's gonna rebuild it for me. So actually change of plans a little bit, and of course a little bit more spending, but hey ho. I removed the 4 bolts from the cylinder head of detail because that's how they look like, but it wasn't really, well, they look really bad, but it wasn't really that condition which concerned me, but it was more this. So there was like silicone sealant around the bolts. So imagine this new one, and around that there was this sort of bead of silicone, which to me said that there's something wrong with the seal. And well, I'm not quite sure why they've actually used it, to be fair, because there's the copper which should seal against the screw itself. So the idea is, as you have the fresh copper surface and the screw goes against it, it will stop the water flowing through it because there's no o-ring underneath. But instead, what some Bright Spark did, they actually just filled a hole with this silicone, but it didn't even clean it under the screw head or the bolt head, so it just made no sense. So I've done that. As you can see, it's all nice and clean now, and I'm using brand new stainless steel bolts, and I'm just adding a little bead of sealant under it, but I'm not using that shite silicone they've used. I'm using actually this is a Loctite black silicone. It's the same as what we use on the sump of cars, so that should do it. And all I'm doing is just adding a tiny amount just under the head of the bolt, and that should seal it. And that is detail all complete. I think it actually turned out quite well. I really like how it looks and how clean it looks for something which hasn't actually been vapor blasted. So yeah, quite chuffed with that. Just a very quick summary of what I have actually done to it. So of course the usual treatment of changing all the bolts to stainless ones all around the rotary cover on the top here, which I've already mentioned. Change the earth cables, new sprocket. Of course, the usual 3D printed blanks on here and on the top. I've changed that gasket, which I've talked about. Cleaned up the ignition. Again, nothing really that major on this one. To be fair, this was actually quite good. There was not a lot to be done on this. I've changed these
disconnectors on all of the ignitions just to make them look good, because it was all yellow. New rubber bobbins on which the core sits, and yeah, I just pretty much had to put it all back together. That was very a quick one, an easy one. Again, new bolts all around. So yeah, that's the engines all finished. You don't see the vortex here anymore, so that's already been sent out for rebuild. I won't actually see that engine back before the race weekend. The person who rebuilds that for me is going to bring that to the track. So from my point of view, that's it all in terms of the engine preparation. Next up is to work on a kart. Not a lot to do on that one, as I mentioned before, mostly cosmetical bits. And I should then be ready for the next round. But as always, we shall see. That's it all from me. Hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.